I may be crazy, but I'm okay if my daughter marries a sex addict. And I'm going to tell you why. If you're in a relationship with a sex addict, I'm going to give you specific things that you need to have in order to create safety for yourself and stay in the relationship. My wife's a nurse. One day came home and she was like, wow, I had the most interesting patient today. It was a circus clown. The guy was all beat up, but she said he was the nicest guy. And she was talking to him and she was saying, how do you do your job? And he said, I know how to do my job. I'm protected. I'm very careful. It's interesting that he was in the hospital, huh? But the point being is, in order to be a circus clown, to be in that arena, he has to be trained and he has to be aware of his surroundings. He knows how to create certain boundaries for himself, and he knows how to really control what's in his control. He can't control the bull, but he can create safety for himself and those around him. Now, I use this analogy because it's similar to being in a relationship with a sex addict. There's a difference between being in a relationship with a sex addict who is working their recovery and a sex addict who is not working their recovery. But if you're like the rodeo clown, you need some training and you need some skills. First thing you need is healthy boundaries. You need to know how to set those boundaries and how to live those boundaries. Those are all about you and how you can create safety. The other thing you need, if you're in a relationship with a sex addict, is a good support system outside of your partner. People that you can talk about things that are going on in your relationship. People that will give you good advice. You don't want a bad support system. People that will keep you stuck in a victim mentality or pushing you to break your boundaries. But people who strengthen you and support you and love you, even if you're talking about hard things with them. Another thing that's really important is that you have healthy coping tools for your emotions. So when you feel scared, when you feel stressed, when you feel sad, you don't just get stuck in those emotions and then act out on those emotions in control and in fear, but you actually process through those emotions, listen to them so that you can continue to trust yourself and continue to do what you need to do for you in order to stay sane and in order to still feel peace in your life. Something that's very important is that you get educated about addiction and about recovery and about betrayal trauma, that you understand what's going on, you can put words to it, you understand the process of healing and the process of really doing your own work. Lastly, and probably the most important, is working on an ability to surrender and let go and let God take over in your recovery. There's a lot outside of your control, and so much of your work is going to be about being able to be vulnerable and being able to accept what's happening. And so practicing letting go and letting God, surrendering to the process, not knowing the outcomes, but knowing how to step forward in what feels true, what feels right to you, and what your gut's telling you to do. So if you're in a relationship with a sex addict, the first thing you're going to want to do is try to control him to be safe. But one of the best things you can do when I talk about surrender is to take a step back and just observe. Think about if you're walking across a frozen pond. As you walk across, you're checking every step to see if you're going to fall through that ice and freeze. That you're not safe. You're not safe if you're checking every step. That's the natural thing to want to do when you're in a relationship with a sex addict, is constantly check to see if you're okay. The healthy thing for you to do is to surrender over his recovery. Let him work his recovery. Pull back and sit on the shoreline and just see how cold it gets. How thick does that ice get? And notice, if it gets thick, you can go out and dance on the ice. You can ice skate and have a great time. If not, you're going to stay on the shoreline until you feel like you are ready to be safe. When you're sitting on the shoreline, you're still observing. They're still important to you. Your relationship is absolutely important. But it's okay for you to back off, to surrender, and to just observe and work on yourself and practice all of these things that I just talked about. Now, why would I be okay with my daughter marrying a sex addict? The truth is I work with a lot of sex addicts, and they're some of the best men that I know. But they are good partners because they have worked recovery. They are honest, they're open, they're transparent, they have integrity. That type of man, I'm happy if my daughter marries that type of man, as long as he is working his recovery. If an addict is not working his recovery, he'll continue to manipulate, he'll continue to live in denial and lie to you and break down safety in the relationship. So it's important that you have these tools. It's important that you have a support system, good, healthy boundaries, ways to cope, education, all of these things so that you can handle being in a relationship with a sex addict. We talked about how to be in a relationship with a sex addict. If you want to dive deeper, check out my video, How to Feel Emotionally Safe in a Relationship, and I'll see you there.